The stars above Zoria Prime shone like scattered diamonds, cold and distant, and yet they reflected in the polished towers of the alien city below. From the sky, the city looked almost peaceful, with violet lights tracing the edges of tall spires, and floating transport vessels moving silently between them. But beneath that serene beauty, tension ran deep. In the heart of the palace, the alien queen, Seraphis, paced her golden hall, her claws lightly tapping on the marble floor. Every step echoed with unease. Reports had arrived hours ago, stories that made even her powerful mind hesitate. A human warrior, they said, was coming. Not just any human, but one whose name had spread through countless galaxies, Cadden Vos. Whispers of his bravery, his victories against impossible odds, and his sheer unpredictability had reached her ears. Every commander in her council spoke of him with a mix of fear and awe. And now he would arrive on her planet. Seraphis's scales bristled as she remembered the Tales. Humans were considered fragile by most alien civilizations, soft-skinned, small-boned, and technologically behind in many areas. Yet somehow, humans carried a strength unlike any other species. They were survivors, improvisers, and fighters with hearts that refused to yield. And this human Cadden Vos was said to embody all of that in one man. A servant entered quietly, bowing. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "the human vessel has entered orbit. It descends now." Seraphis stopped pacing. Her long, flowing robes shimmered with the soft light of the palace as she turned toward the sky view window. Outside, a sleek, silver ship sliced through the violet clouds, glowing faintly as it descended toward the landing platform. Unlike the military transports that usually came here, this one carried no army, no weapons visible from the outside. It moved with calm precision, almost arrogant in its simplicity. Seraphis exhaled slowly. Her advisors whispered nervously behind her. "He is human. He is alone. This could be a trap, but what if it is not?" She replied, her voice low and tense. Even she could not hide the tiny spark of curiosity that had been growing since the reports arrived. She had fought countless wars, faced enemies that could crush entire cities, and yet this name alone, Cadden Vos, made her pause. The landing platform doors opened with a hiss, and the figure emerged. Cadden stepped down from his ship without hurry, his armor scuffed and worn, yet shining with the faint light of distant stars. He carried no weapons in his hands, yet his presence filled the vast space of the landing hall. Every guard instinctively reached for their blades, but then hesitated. Something about him was different. Cadden looked around, calmly studying the palace towers, the guards, the distant mountains beyond. He did not flinch at the alien eyes that scrutinized him. He did not bow. He merely walked with quiet confidence, each step deliberate, yet free of arrogance. His voice, when he finally spoke, was calm but carried weight. "I am Cadden Vos," he said, and the words themselves seemed to echo through the hall. "I come not to fight your people, but to protect them from what is coming." Seraphis's heart skipped a beat. She could not remember the last time she felt something like this. Fear mixed with awe, curiosity tangled with caution. The council murmured behind her, some whispering that no human could command such presence, while others feared that if he could, their world might never be the same. A sudden, uneasy silence fell. Outside, the sky seemed darker, as if even the stars themselves were holding their breath. Seraphis finally spoke, her voice steady, though a shiver ran down her spine. "You claim to come for peace, human," she said. "Why should I believe that you are not here to destroy us?" Cadden's eyes met hers, unwavering. "Because I fight not for conquest or glory," he said softly, "but for what is right. Even when the odds are against me, I fight. You may see me as weak because I am human, but I will prove that strength is not measured by size or weaponry alone." For a long moment, Seraphis simply stared. Her claws flexed, her heart racing. Something inside her recognized the truth in his words. Humans were strange creatures, unpredictable, full of courage and stubborn hope. And somehow she knew. This human was no ordinary soldier. As she turned back to her balcony, watching the city below, she realized the legend was not a story anymore. He had arrived. And somehow, just knowing his name, Cadden Vos, made her shiver in a way she had never felt before. Outside, the wind whispered across the palace towers, carrying the faint hum of engines. A new chapter was beginning on Zoria Prime, one that would test courage, heart, and the strength of a single human against a universe that had never truly believed in them. Cadden walked through the grand corridors of the palace, each step echoing softly on the polished floor. The walls were tall and decorated with glowing symbols of Zoria Prime's history, stories of warriors and rulers who had shaped the planet for centuries. Yet, even in this awe-inspiring place, all eyes were on him, the human warrior who carried the weight of legends in his name. Guards shifted nervously, unsure whether to challenge him or simply watch. Sarathis watched from above, hidden behind a veil of shadow. She had never seen a human move like this before. He was calm, precise, and confident, yet there was no arrogance in his gaze. She felt a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. This human could not be ordinary. The stories that had traveled across star systems did not exaggerate. He radiated power, not in strength alone, but in presence. In purpose. Cadden stopped in the central hall, and the doors opened automatically. A soft hum filled the space as he entered the throne room, and Sarathis stepped down from her dais. The alien queen was taller than most humans would expect, her scales shimmering in shades of violet and gold. Her eyes, sharp and piercing, studied him with interest and suspicion. The room fell completely silent, as though the walls themselves held their breath. "You are the one they call Cadenvus," Sarathis said, her voice even but commanding. Every word carried authority, and yet there was a faint quiver, a human would call it emotion, hidden beneath her tone. Cadden bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "I am," he said. "And I have come because your planet is in danger. There is a darkness approaching that will consume everything if it is not stopped." Sarathis narrowed her eyes. "You speak boldly for someone who is so small," she said. Her words were not meant to insult, yet they carried the weight of centuries of alien pride. Most humans would have flinched, but Cadden simply met her gaze. "I may be small," he replied calmly, "but I do not measure myself by size. I measure by courage and by the will to protect those who cannot protect themselves." For a moment, silence hung between them like a tangible thing. The Queen's guards whispered among themselves, wondering how a human could command such presence. Even Sarathis felt her heart quicken, not from fear alone, but from a strange respect. Here was a creature her species had long underestimated, standing boldly in the heart of her palace, unafraid. "Why should I trust you?" she asked finally, her tone sharper now. "Your kind has no history of defending others beyond their own world. You have come to Zoria Prime. What do you gain from this?" Cadden paused, considering his words carefully. "I gain nothing for myself," he said softly. "But I know that courage is not bound to one species, and honor is not owned by any one world. I fight for what is right, even when it costs everything. And I will fight to save your people, even if you do not yet believe in me." Sarathis's scales shimmered faintly. No human had ever spoken to her with such clarity, such honesty. She had faced tyrants, invaders, and traitors, yet this one human, standing quietly yet boldly before her, caused her to feel something entirely unfamiliar. Hope. Cadden continued, stepping closer, though never crossing the invisible line that would threaten her authority. "I have fought enemies that could crush entire fleets, yet I survived," he said. "I am here because I can, and because it is right. I do not ask for trust, only a chance to prove that humans can be more than legends, they can be protectors." The Queen's voice softened slightly. "Legends are often exaggerated," she said. "They grow larger with each telling. You claim to be real, but how can I know your words are not just another story?" Cadden's gaze did not falter. "Because you will see. Soon you will see not just my words, but my actions." For the first time in her long life, Sarathis felt a shiver that was not born of fear alone. It was anticipation, awe, and a strange excitement mingled with unease. She realized that humans, fragile, strange, unpredictable humans, held a power that few could comprehend. And this one human, this Cadden Voss, was about to prove it. The room remained silent for a long moment. Guards lowered their weapons slightly, whispers fading into reverent stillness. Sarathis studied him again, her sharp eyes searching, weighing, and finally conceding something she had never admitted before. This human might just be the hope her world needed. Outside the palace, the winds of Zoria Prime stirred, carrying the promise of change. And within the grand throne room, a warrior from a distant planet and a queen of immense power shared a quiet understanding. The story of Cadden Voss was only beginning, and the fate of the planet would soon rest in his hands. The morning sun barely touched the crystalline towers of Zoria Prime when Cadden was led to the arena. The structure was immense, circular, and open to the violet sky above, with platforms stretching into the distance for spectators. It had witnessed centuries of combat, battles that decided the fate of kings and entire fleets. Today, it would witness something new, a human facing a champion of Zoria Prime. Sarathis observed from her elevated seat, her eyes sharp and calculating. The council had demanded a test, a demonstration of the human's worth. Cadden, they said, could not be trusted without proof. Sarathis had agreed, though every instinct screamed that she already knew his answer. Still, protocol demanded it. Cadden stepped into the center of the arena. His armor was scratched, dust clinging to his boots, yet he moved with calm precision. His gaze swept the crowd, taking in every alien figure, every weapon poised in tension. He did not flinch, and there was a quiet confidence about him, a presence that made even the largest warriors pause. Then came the opponent. A towering Zorian warrior, scales dark as molten steel, claws sharp enough to shred armor, and eyes glowing with a predator's hunger. The crowd roared as the creature approached, its movements fluid and terrifying. No human had ever faced such a being, and many whispered that this battle would end in death for the intruder. The alien champion flexed its claws and let out a sound like crashing thunder. The ground vibrated beneath its weight. Yet Cadden stood firm. His eyes, steady and unwavering, met the warrior's gaze, and for a moment, the arena was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a fluid motion, the battle began. The Zorian lunged first, swift and brutal. Cadden dodged, barely moving his feet, letting the warrior's claws miss by inches. He countered with a strike aimed at a weak point near the joints, a move learned not from alien training, but from human instinct and experience. The strike landed, but the warrior barely reacted, its thick scales absorbing the impact. The fight continued, each movement a dance of precision and courage. Cadden used speed and intelligence to compensate for his smaller size. He didn't fight like a human should have. They thought he fought like a legend. He anticipated the aliens' attacks, studied patterns, and used the environment to his advantage. Dust and debris became his allies, each movement calculated yet instinctive. Sarathis watched, her heart racing. Every strike, every dodge, every counterattack revealed a truth she could not deny. Humans, or at least this human, had a resilience that defied logic. Her claws clenched slightly as she whispered to herself, "Is this possible?" The crowd, initially confident in the champion's victory, grew quiet, then tense. Some began to cheer cautiously as Cadden maneuvered the warrior into a corner, striking rapidly at vital joints. The alien faltered, unprepared for the sheer cunning of a being so small yet so focused. Finally, with one decisive move, Cadden delivered a calculated strike that caused the champion to fall, roaring in defeat. Silence followed. Then came a ripple of awe and disbelief. The arena erupted, not with mockery, but with genuine admiration. Guards lowered their weapons, whispers spreading like wildfire. "He is not just a human, he is extraordinary." Sarathis felt a shiver run through her scales, not from fear, but from an emotion unfamiliar yet powerful respect. She had fought warriors from countless species, faced betrayals and battles that reshaped empires. Yet she had never witnessed such raw brilliance, such courage. In someone so small, Cadden stood in the center of the arena, breathing steadily, his armor scratched but his spirit unbroken. He looked at Sarathis with quiet determination. "I fight for more than myself," he said simply. "I fight for what is right. And I will prove it again, if I must." Sarathis leaned forward, her eyes glinting with a mixture of astonishment and something more subtle hope. She realized that humans, underestimated and dismissed by most, carried a fire no other species could easily extinguish. One man, a single human, had shown courage that could inspire, that could protect, that could change the course of history. The crowd cheered louder, but Sarathis's mind was elsewhere. She had seen something beyond skill. She had seen heart, spirit, and the strange, unstoppable strength that humans possessed. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Cadden Voss was more than a warrior. He was a force, a symbol, and perhaps the hope her world desperately needed. As the sun climbed higher in the violet sky, Cadden turned toward Sarathis, offering a slight bow of respect. In her heart, the alien queen shivered, not from fear, but from the realization that legends were not just stories. They were real. And he was standing before her. The arena had fallen silent. But the echoes of Cadden's victory lingered in every corner of Zoria Prime, even in the palace. Whispers traveled quickly, reaching every guard, council member, and servant. They spoke of the human who had defeated a Zorian champion, a feat no one thought possible. Yet, amidst the celebrations and astonishment, Sarathis felt a strange emptiness, an unfamiliar curiosity that pulled her toward the human who had shaken her world. Cadden walked through the palace corridors later that day, unhurried, taking in the beauty and history of the alien world. His steps were careful, respectful, yet confident. Unlike most who came before him, he did not rush to claim the queen's favor, nor did he flaunt his victory. He spoke with the servants, listening to their stories of hardship and loyalty. He asked questions about their history, their customs, and even their small joys. Seraphis observed him from a balcony high above, hidden in shadows. She had expected arrogance or pride, but instead she saw humility, kindness, and something deeply human, empathy. Her heart, which had hardened through centuries of leadership, felt a strange flutter. Humans were unpredictable, and Cadden more so. There was power in his presence, but also warmth, a rare combination she could not ignore. Later, in the private gardens of the palace, Seraphis found herself walking beside him. The gardens were filled with luminescent flowers, their soft glow illuminating paths that seemed to stretch endlessly. Cadden paused to admire a small bloom, its petals shimmering like liquid light. "Your people have beauty that is hard to describe," he said softly, almost to himself. Seraphis tilted her head, studying him. "You are full of words for someone who came here as a warrior," she said, her voice carrying both amusement and caution. Cadden smiled faintly. "I am more than a warrior," he said. "I fight, yes, but I also see. I listen, I learn. That is how I survive and how I help others survive too." For a moment, they walked in silence. The queen, who had never shared such moments with anyone human or Zorian, found herself speaking without pretense. She told him stories of the palace, of battles fought and lost, of the weight of responsibility she carried. Cadden listened quietly, nodding occasionally, never interrupting, never judging. "You bear more than most could imagine," he said finally. "Yet you stand tall. That takes strength, Seraphis. A strength not measured by claws or scales, but by heart." Seraphis felt a shiver at the sound of her name on his lips. Few had ever spoken to her like that. Most bowed, most feared, most obeyed, but this human did not. He saw her as she truly was, not as a ruler to be feared. And in that seeing, a bond began to form, fragile but undeniable. Days passed, and Cadden remained in the palace, moving among the people, learning, helping, and listening. He trained with the soldiers, sharing strategies, showing bravery, and yet never seeking praise. Seraphis watched from afar, seeing how the people began to trust him, how the guards began to admire him, and how even the council grudgingly acknowledged his value. One evening, as the twin moons of Zoria Prime rose in the violet sky, Seraphis approached him in the gardens once more. She stood quietly, watching his reflection in the still water of a fountain. "I have seen many warriors," she said softly, "but none like you. You carry courage in a way that terrifies and inspires at the same time." Cadden looked up at her, his eyes steady. "That is what humans do," he said. "We fight not just with strength, but with heart. And when we care, we fight harder than anything else in the universe." Seraphis exhaled, feeling emotions she had long suppressed. Fear, admiration, curiosity, hope, they swirled within her. In that moment, she realized that this human was more than a visitor or a soldier. He was a force of nature, quiet yet unstoppable. A being who could see what others could not and inspire those who had lost hope. And in the stillness of the gardens, under the glow of alien moons, a silent understanding passed between them. They were from different worlds, different species, yet a bond had begun, one born of courage, respect, and the recognition that some hearts, no matter how small, could carry the weight of entire worlds. Seraphis turned away first, yet a thought lingered in her mind. The human who had shaken her palace, her people, and her heart was not merely a warrior. He was something far greater. He was hope. The calm of Zoria Prime's shattered one morning when the sky darkened with a fleet unlike anything the planet had ever seen. Enormous warships, black as obsidian and bristling with weapons, appeared over the horizon. Their engines roared like thunder, shaking the ground, and the air smelled of ionized energy. Panic spread through the cities below. Civilians ran, alarms blared, and even the most seasoned soldiers felt unease gnawing at their hearts. Seraphis stood at the palace balcony, her claws gripping the rail. She had faced many threats before, but this felt different, more immediate, more deadly. Entire planets had fallen to these invaders, and she could feel the weight of every life she had sworn to protect pressing against her chest. Her scales rippled with tension, and for the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Could she protect her people? Could she survive this on her own? Cadden appeared beside her, his armor scratched but his eyes calm. He had sensed the fear spreading through the palace before the reports arrived. "Sarathis," he said quietly, "we cannot wait for them to strike. We must act, and we must act now." She looked at him, the human who had won her respect and shaken the foundations of her belief in strength. "You would lead my army?" she asked, a note of disbelief in her voice. "They are not humans. They are Zorians, and they have fought wars for centuries. Can a human command them?" Cadden met her gaze, steady and unwavering. "Not because I am human," he said, "but because I see what they cannot see yet. I will fight with them, beside them, and show them courage. That is what humans do. Lead with heart, and others will follow." The queen hesitated. Every instinct screamed that sending a human to lead her forces was madness. Yet, somehow she knew he was right. There was a fire in him, a confidence rooted not in pride, but in understanding. And sometimes that was stronger than any weapon. She nodded. "Then go, Cadden Voss, lead them. Do not fail my people." Cadden gave a slight bow and turned to face the gathered soldiers. Many of them had never seen a human before, and some doubted him silently. The alien commanders muttered that this was a foolish decision, but Cadden did not falter. He spoke to them calmly, clearly, inspiring confidence not through words of glory, but through honesty. "You will face enemies unlike any before," he said. "They are powerful, yes, but they do not have your courage. They do not have your will to protect your families, your homes, your world. Fight beside me, trust yourself, and we will survive together." For the first time, doubt began to dissolve. The soldiers straightened, their weapons raised, hearts pounding with renewed determination. Even the council murmured approval. The human warrior, small, fragile, yet unyielding, was giving them something they had never felt before: belief. The battle began as the enemy fleet descended. Explosions lit the sky, and the sound of blasters and energy cannons shook the ground. Cadden moved swiftly, coordinating attacks, guiding ships, and predicting enemy movements. His tactics were daring, often risky, yet they worked. Each maneuver struck precisely, exploiting weaknesses the Zorians had overlooked. Sarathis watched, her chest tight with awe. He was more than a human. He was a strategist, a leader, a force that seemed to bend the chaos of battle into order. He inspired not through fear, but through courage, and the soldiers followed without hesitation. Hours passed, and the battle raged fiercely. The alien invaders were relentless, but the defenders, guided by Cadden, held their ground. Every strike he called, every maneuver he executed, was calculated, precise, and full of heart. Slowly, the tide began to turn. By nightfall, the enemy fleet was retreating, battered and broken. The city below was scarred, but not destroyed. The people cheered, their voices carrying across the palace walls. Sarathis exhaled, tears brimming in her eyes, not from relief alone, but from the realization of what she had witnessed. A human had led her people to victory. Cadden returned to the palace, his armor scorched but his spirit unbroken. Sarathis met him in the grand hall, her voice trembling slightly. "You have done what no one else could," she said. "You have saved my people. You have saved this world." Cadden shook his head humbly. "I did not do it alone. We fought together. But sometimes," he said softly, "all it takes is one person to inspire hope." For the first time, Sarathis understood fully the strength humans carried, strength not in size or technology, but in courage, heart, and the will to fight for what is right. And she knew, without a doubt, that Cadden Voss was no ordinary human. He was a warrior of legend. The morning after the battle, Zoria Prime was quiet, but not peaceful. Smoke still rose from shattered buildings, and the streets were filled with soldiers helping the wounded and rebuilding what had been damaged. Yet amidst the destruction, there was hope, a fragile, glowing hope that spread through the people like sunlight after a storm. And at the center of it all was Cadden Voss, the human warrior who had defied every expectation. Sarathis walked through the palace halls, her eyes following him as he moved from room to room, speaking to soldiers, council members, and citizens alike. He did not walk with arrogance or pride. He walked with quiet purpose, listening to concerns, offering guidance, and helping in ways she had never seen a leader do before. Her chest tightened with admiration. Humans were strange creatures, fragile yet unbreakable, small yet capable of inspiring giants. And Cadden, he carried all of that within him. The queen followed him to the training yards, where soldiers practiced maneuvers he had taught them. He moved among them, correcting his stance here, offering encouragement there. The soldiers who had once doubted him now watched with respect and even awe. They saw a man who risked everything not for glory, but for the lives of others. Sarathis approached quietly, her presence commanding but gentle. "You have done more than I imagined," she said softly. Her scales shimmered faintly in the sunlight. "Even my council now speaks of you with admiration, not suspicion." Cadden looked up and smiled faintly. "I did what anyone would do," he said, but Sarathis knew better. Few would have faced those odds. Few would have inspired an entire people in a single day. "I fight because it is right," he continued. "And I will continue to fight as long as I am needed." For a moment, they walked together in silence, the violet sky above casting a soft glow over the palace gardens. Sarathis had never shared moments like this with anyone. She had ruled with authority, with fear, and with strategy. But never with someone who made her heart feel something more, something she could not name. "You are different from any leader I have known," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "You do not command through fear or power. You command through courage, and through your heart." Cadden stopped and looked at her, his eyes steady. "That is how humans fight," he said softly. "We fight for what we believe in, for those we care about. Strength is not only in muscle or weapons, it is in the willingness to stand when everyone else doubts you." Her gaze softened. She had seen strength in many forms, but this was something rare. Something alive. She realized that humans, unpredictable as they were, had a spark she had never understood until now. And Cadden, he was the brightest spark she had ever seen. Days passed, and the rebuilding continued. Soldiers trained, citizens returned to their homes, and the city slowly came alive again. Cadden moved among them like a quiet force, not demanding respect, but earning it. Sarathis watched him, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She had been a queen for centuries, and she had learned to rely on her mind and strategy. But Cadden reminded her of something she had almost forgotten: the power of heart, courage, and belief. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the violet horizon, Sarathis found herself walking with him in the palace gardens. The air was cool, carrying the scent of luminescent flowers that glowed softly in the moonlight. She stopped and looked at him. "You have changed my people," she said. "And in many ways you have changed me as well." Cadden smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "I am only one human," he said softly. "But even one person can make a difference when they act with courage. You, Sarathis, allowed that courage to grow. You gave me the chance to fight for what is right, and together, we saved your world." The queen felt a shiver run through her scales, not from fear, but from something warmer, deeper. Respect, admiration, and an emotion she could not yet name swirled within her. In the quiet of the gardens, under the twin moons, she realized that Cadden was more than a warrior or a legend. He was hope, he was inspiration, and he was a reminder of what it meant to fight for something greater than oneself. And as they stood together, looking out over the recovering city, Sarathis knew one truth with absolute certainty. The human who had shaken her world, who had saved her people, was not merely a visitor from another planet. He was something far greater, a force of courage, a heart that could change worlds, and perhaps, the beginning of a new era for Zorya Prime.